Hey Pokemon fans, Tamashii here. One of my biggest requests since X and Y has come out is to make a new updated Eevee training tutorial. Eevee training has gotten even easier since last gen, so I'm happy to oblige. This video is going to assume you never saw the first one, so that no one has to go back and rewatch that old video for any reason. So I'm going to be repeating some of the same info here in the beginning, but I'll try and keep it brief. When it comes to understanding some of the more complex hidden mechanics in Pokemon, my philosophy is to take a hands-on approach and learn how to use them effectively, rather than focusing so much on what they are exactly or why they work. A lot of people get intimidated when they first find out about Eevee training because of all the math involved in understanding the effort value mechanic. But if you just dive right in and try it for yourself, you'll find that it's a lot simpler than it sounds. And once you've actually Eevee trained a Pokemon, you'll have an easier time understanding exactly what Eevees are and how they affect a Pokemon in battle. So for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to try and avoid overwhelming you with information about why Eevee training is so important and what Eevees are exactly. For those new to the concept though, Eevees, or effort values, are invisible numbers that add up to boost certain stats that every Pokemon earns just by defeating other Pokemon. However, since there is a cap on how many Eevees you can earn per Pokemon, people train their Pokemon specifically so that all the Eevees they can earn go towards the most useful stats, and won't be wasted in stats that particular Pokemon won't utilize. This is how you optimize your Pokemon stats for areas like the Battle Maison and online Wi-Fi battles. Super Training was also introduced in X and Y, and while it works great for early in the game and during the story, once you hit the post-game there's a much quicker and easier way to max out your Pokemon's EVs, so the methods explained in this video are not going to involve any mini-games. Since Eevee training is a bit of an advanced training technique, this tutorial is going to assume you already know a decent amount about Pokemon. If you don't know what Pokerus is, or how it works for example, or what the different stats are and what they all do, I suggest looking that up first before watching the rest of this video. Save often if you're trying this for the first time, and don't be afraid of messing up. If you save before moving on to another step, if you're worried you messed something up, you can always reset and try again. And if you did save after messing something up, don't let that discourage you from using a reset bag and trying again. But enough with all the what and why, let's move on to the how. Step 1. Gather materials. To begin, we'll need some materials. First, you'll want Pokerus. The best way to get this is by trading someone over Wi-Fi for a Pokemon that carries this disease in a spreadable form. If a Pokemon has the pink Pokerus icon in their status screen, that's how you know they can spread Pokerus. If they have a little pink smiley face on their status screen instead, they still have Pokerus and will still benefit from its effects, but they can no longer spread it to other Pokemon. If you don't have Wi-Fi, you can get the disease in the wild just by battling a wild Pokemon that has it, but it's extremely rare to do so. Since Pokerus is so rare, if you don't have Wi-Fi, it's not absolutely necessary to have Pokerus to Eevee train your Pokemon. It just doubles all the Eevees earned per Pokemon knocked out, which makes the whole process go a lot faster. Second, you'll need some power items. The power band, belt, weight, bracer, lens, and anklet. These can be obtained through the Battle Maison with battle points. Each costs 16 BP, so prepare to do a lot of battling to earn these. Third, you'll want a Pokemon with sweet scent, like Bulbasaur, Weepinbell, Oddish, Ursaring, Mawile, Roselia, or Combee. To make the process go faster, make sure you have a mid to high level Pokemon with a move that can hit all 5 Pokemon in a horde battle, like Rock Slide, Boom Burst, or Earthquake. You'll also, of course, want an EXP share, but since you get that during the story, you won't have to worry about going out of your way to get one. Lastly, you'll need some vitamins. These can be purchased from the Pokemon Center in Laver City. They're a bit pricey, but if you use a bargain O-Power, they're easily affordable. This is just optional, but you can also stock up on some training bags and reset bags by idling on the Super Training screen, or tapping the punching bag with no bag selected. What you get by doing this is random, but it can still help out if you happen to get a large bag that boosts the stat you're training. Don't waste too much time getting these bags though, because they're not absolutely necessary. Step 2. Pick your Pokemon. Of course, besides these items, you'll need the Pokemon you want to Eevee train. This can be absolutely any Pokemon you want. However, it is important to make sure your Pokemon has no EVs prior to starting your training. Otherwise, some EVs might be assigned to stats you don't want to train and take away from stats you do want. Unlike past generations though, there is now a simple way to remove any previously earned unwanted EVs, so even Pokemon you've previously used in battle can be retrained. To check if your Pokemon has any EVs, put them in your party and check them in the Super Training screen. If the bar on the right side of the screen is empty, then that Pokemon has no EVs. If it's filled in yellow at all though, you'll want to use a reset bag on them to remove all their EVs before you begin. To clarify, Pokemon can be EV trained at any level or evolutionary stage. it will not affect the outcome of the training by starting at level 1 or level 100. The only thing that matters is that they start with no EVs in any stat. For the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to raise my Gourgeist Bonbon. On the Super Training screen, the bar is completely empty, so I know it has 0 EVs in every stat, and it's ready to be EV trained. Step 3. Choose your EV spread. Before we get started training, we need to decide how we're going to spread out the EVs. Unfortunately, since the XY metagame is so new, unlike my previous tutorial, I can't recommend going to smogon.com for recommended spreads, because they haven't created an XY Pokédex for the site yet. So to get recommended EV spreads for X and Y, you'll need to go to Pokémon Showdown, an online Pokémon battling simulator that I'll link below in the video description. Open up the Team Builder, pick X and Y OU as your format, and choose the Pokémon you plan on training. Then choose 4 moves you'd like to use with your Pokémon and click the little stats graph. Pokemon Showdown will then suggest an EV spread for you based on the moves that you entered. Unfortunately, these sets are not always accurate, but they're still a good way to get a grasp of how to EV train a Pokemon. Later on, you can always figure out your own build and retrain them to your liking. How do you choose what moves to give to your Pokemon? Well, look through the moves your Pokemon can learn, and then choose 4 that suit the role you'd like it to play on your team the best. Do you want your Pokemon to be offensive or defensive? What nature and ability does it have, and what would complement it the best? In this case, my Gourgeist is careful, which means it's better suited to be a defensive Pokemon. So I'll give it some utility moves and go with the EV spread suggested by Showdown, which gives it 252 HP, 252 defense, and 4 attack. Most of the builds you'll see on Showdown really only involve training 3 stats, since there's a 510 cap on the total number of EVs you can earn per Pokemon, and a cap of 252 usable EVs per stat. The most effective way to use these EVs is usually to spread them around on 3 or 4 key stats that you want your Pokemon to excel in. Which stats are most effective really depends on the Pokemon, and luckily Showdown does most of the thinking for you and figuring out what build is best for which Pokemon. Step 4. Give your Pokemon Pokerus. Now that we've picked our Pokemon and EV spread, it's time to begin the actual training. First, put a Pokemon in your party that carries Pokerus in a spreadable form, as indicated by the pink Pokerus icon on their status screen. Put the Pokemon you want to EV train in your party as well, and then go to your bag and turn off the EXP share. Then battle a few wild Pokemon to spread Pokerus. Make sure only the carrier is battling, not the Pokemon you want to train. Do this until the Pokemon you want to train also has the pink Pokerus icon on their status screen, indicating that they have contracted Pokerus. Now you can put the carrier away in the PC again and turn the EXP share back on. Step 5. Stat 1. Vitamins. Let's start with the first stat we wanted to train, HP, which we wanted to give Gourgeist 252 EVs in. To knock this down to a more manageable number, give it 10 HP ups, which will take care of the first 100 EVs. Something to keep in mind is that each vitamin gives 10 EVs in their respective stat, but they only count towards the first 100 EVs in any stat. If your Pokemon already has 100 EVs or more in a stat from battling Pokemon or other methods, the vitamins won't have any effect. This means you absolutely must give your Pokemon vitamins before doing any of the other steps. Once you've given it vitamins, you can also give it any training bags you happen to have in that stat. I actually had quite a few large HP bags left over from an earlier training session, so I was able to knock off another 60 EVs this way. Step 6. Stat 1. Grinding with Hordes. For the remaining 92 EVs though, we'll need to battle some hordes of wild Pokemon. Every single Pokemon gives a predetermined number of EVs for defeating them based on their species. And of course, when you can knock out 5 of a Pokemon at once in a horde encounter, that number is multiplied by 5. For example, every Wingull gives 1 speed EV when defeated, so every horde of Wingull gives 5 speed EVs once defeated. We're training for HP, so we'll need to find a horde of Pokemon that give HP EVs when defeated. An easy way to do this is just to go to Nugget Bridge's article on X and Y EV training hotspots, linked in the video description. This page has a list of all the best places to grind for EVs in every stat. Since we're looking for HP, we have the option of defeating hordes of Gulpin on Route 5, or hordes of Whismur in Connecting Cave. To force horde encounters to occur, you'll need to bring along a Pokemon that knows Sweet Scent, and use it while standing in tall grass or a cave to trigger the battle. Since we don't want EVs in any other stat but HP right now, we'll run away from anything that isn't a Whismur horde. Now, since I want to knock out these Whismur quickly, I'll put my Golurk with Earthquake at the front of my party, so I can knock out all 5 at once. With the EXP share on, my Gourgeist will still earn EVs even though it isn't the one battling. Since Gourgeist isn't holding anything, I'll give it a power weight to hold to increase the amount of HP EVs earned per battle even more. The Whismur give 1 Eevee each when defeated, and with Gourgeist holding the power weight, that increases the number of Eevees earned per Whismur to 5. Since Gourgeist also has Pokerus, that means each individual Whismur will give 10 HP Eevees when defeated. In a horde encounter with 5 Pokemon, you can multiply that number by 5, so every time Golurk knocks out a horde of 5 Whismur, Gourgeist will earn 50 HP Eevees. After just 2 Whismur horde encounters, Gourgeist's HP is maxed out. Handy to know in X and Y, the Eevee total per stat now caps at 252, so you won't have to worry about going over and wasting any points. Step 7. Stat 2 Vitamins. Now that I'm done with my HP stat, it's time to move on to the next stat that I plan to train, Defense. Again, we'll give it 10 iron to take off that initial 100 EVs. I also happen to have 2 large defense training bags, so I'll use those to take off another 24. Step 8. Stat 2 Grinding with Hordes. For defense, we'll train much like we did for HP, only with a different Pokemon horde and held item. First, we'll switch the power weight Gourgeist is holding for a power belt, and then we'll go to Terminus Cave and battle hordes of Geodudes and Durants. Again, running from everything that isn't either one of those Pokemon. Geodudes give 1 defense EV each, which in a horde encounter with Pokerus and the power item translates to 50 per encounter, and Durant gives 2 defense EVs each, which in the same scenario translates to 80 per battle. Since we only have 127 defense EVs we need to earn, we'll have maxed out our defense stat in 3 horde encounters. Step 9. Stat 3 Vitamins. The last stat, Attack, we only need 4 EVs in. Since all of our other stats are done being trained, it's okay to overcompensate and just give it 1 protein to finish it up. All vitamins give 10 EVs in their respective stat each, but since we already assigned all the EVs we want to other stats, it's okay to go a little bit over here. And with that, we have successfully completely EV trained a Pokemon. That wasn't so bad, was it? Usually in X and Y, it only takes about 5 minutes to fully EV train a Pokemon, so it's extremely simple once you get the hang of it. As you EV train more Pokemon, you'll get more and more familiar with the idea of manipulating stats, and you'll see how simple the process can be. Once you get the hang of it, you can even grab 4 more power items and train up to 5 Pokemon at once. Only thing to note though, is that since X and Y has random weather, occasionally it may be raining on routes where you need to train, and this will stop horde battles from occurring there. To fix this, you'll just have to wait until the rain stops. There are links to some useful articles and guides related to this tutorial down below, and happy training! Thanks for watching, and don't forget to click here to subscribe for more Pokemon videos. See ya!